Hey everyone, welcome to today's digital workshop. My name is Elizabeth Bowe, and I'm a member of the Episcopal Parish Network Board of Directors. On behalf of our Executive Director, Joe Swimmer, who's not able to join us today, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar. And I'm going to turn it over to Ben and Jenny to go ahead and get things started. But thank you again for joining us. And if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask them, please feel free to put those in the chat. Thanks.
Yeah. I'll just do a quick intro and then I'll hand it over to Ben. He's our presenter today. I'm Jenny Lutter. I am at Vanco as the Director of Partnerships. So my job since I started 4.5 years ago has been to really foster this relationship with the Episcopal Parish Network. And we are thrilled to serve so many thousands, a couple thousand Episcopalian churches. Thank you for your faithful time as customers, those of you who are in the audience. And we just want to remind you, because of this partnership, you do have access to discounted pricing. So if you call in, make sure to remind anyone you talk to that you're Episcopalian and are connected with EPN. Enjoy this presentation, Ben.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so we'll jump in right now. Hopefully, everybody can see the screen that we just popped on. And yeah, so welcome to today's presentation. Super excited to get a chance to share with everybody. It's an incredible season, and one of the things that we're super privileged to have EPN extend the invite to us to be able to share with you and to really talk about cultivating a culture of generosity in this particular time frame, this season of the year. It's such an incredible season, a time of celebration, a time of joy, and a time of remembrance. And so as we talk about building generosity here, I want to just take you through a little bit of several things we want to cover. First of all, we'll start off today with some seasonal reflections focused on Lent, focused on Easter. Then we'll go through the evolving giving preferences that we see. So as a company, we spend quite a bit of time really diving into the giving preferences of folks across the country, how they want to give, how they experience meaning in their giving, and the intricacies of how that works for them in their churches. On top of that, super important that we talk a little bit about making giving automatic. There's a world that we live in that's so focused on an automatic approach to everything, whether it's automated deliveries, whether it's things tied to auto ordering, auto payments, auto anything. We live in a world where we expect things to be automatic, and donors are increasingly expecting to participate in giving and to be investing in their faith communities in that automatic way and making it simple in their life. We'll talk a little bit about some tools in terms of specific platforms and specific modules that tie into how Vanco approaches this, but also then what's a practical plan for generosity, and then we'll open it to some questions. So with that, let's dive in. So as Jenny alluded to, Ben Keeney, I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Vanco. So I support our faith business across all of its iterations and our touch points throughout the country, but super excited to be with you guys today. Wanted to just start very briefly with a reflection on Easter and Lent. And, from my perspective, growing up as the child of a minister and thinking about what this season means, I think it's super important that we just ground ourselves again in how abundant the love was that was given for us. We live in a world where we've been blessed, and we have a Savior that laid his life down. And so I think about, 1 John 3:16 through 18, and how do we know this love? That we received it, right? We received it because he laid his life down for us, and we ought to lay our lives down for other people and for the kingdom. And as we think about that, what does that tie into on a go forward, and how does that tie into stewardship? It ties into this abundance of love and this bountiful generosity that we should be exhibiting and we should be encouraging across our faith communities. And that really is that when we sow abundantly, whether it's the gospel or whether it's love or whether it's material goods, money, etc., time, those things will reap bountifully. And they're promised to us in scripture. Paul writes and reveals this promise to us. So I think those couple of reminders for us, just as we get into this, it's super important to ground ourselves. And as we talk through how we approach it, we never want to get too far away from that. We never want to depart in a great way from those promises in this season, the most meaningful season in the life of a Christian. And as we think about that, we're thinking about folks that are unchurched, coming into the church and experiencing the faith communities we've built. How are they going to experience that? How are they going to participate in that? And how do we open it up for them? So with that, let's talk a little bit about some evolving giving preferences, right? So there's been a transition, and there's been a modernization and expectation that we alluded to a little bit earlier. And some of that is tied directly into how our giving preferences, have evolved, right? So across the country, we're seeing, in less than a decade, givers are 3 times more likely to give via recurring electronic contributions. It's just how they expect to operate today. They're 4 times more likely to give via a smartphone app. So they're on their phones and they're thinking about it, not just in terms of what are they doing from a desktop perspective, but also what does their mobile experience look like? And then on top of that, 3x more likely to give via texting. So these preferences, this transition to a mobile world and to a digital world has been profound, and it's accelerated massively. We invest, like I said, quite a bit of time looking into the data to find out this information. And this tells us a few things, right? It tells us that we need to be where our donors are. And we need to be thinking about their giving the way that they think about it, their stewardship the way that they think about it. How can we be where they are? So now when we think about e-givers, here's what's exciting. They're so much more active in church. They're 73% more likely to attend church weekly, and 43% more likely to attend fundraisers. And on top of that, as I know and I hear as I talk to clients throughout the country on a regular basis, they're experiencing the same thing that I see locally in my church, which is there's a challenge with volunteering. There's a need that outstrips what the workload that most people are willing to share. And so as we look at online givers, they're significantly more likely to volunteer as well. So that makes a lot of sense as we think about, okay, how do we tie people into this community ongoing, not just today, but they come in, we give them a place to connect, a place that offers a touch point, whether it's through mobile app, whether it's through our online, our web pages, etc., and the ability to maintain contact on an ongoing basis. So let's talk a little bit about making giving automatic. Why would we want to do this, right? So in terms of recurring donors, now this research that we did was broken down by average weekly attendance. So you'll see that there's a breakdown from 100 to 199 average weekly attendance, 200 to 299 average weekly attendance, etc. But within what we would call a mid-size church, you see somewhere between 21% and 25% of folks who are donors that are giving recurring donations. So there's huge opportunity to grow. It's a quarter or less of folks across the board that are currently donating on a recurring basis. And we already discovered that there's a significant benefit to not only the church community, but to their involvement based on that. And we think about the overall annualized benefit for this in terms of our church communities, it's profound. On a total basis, 120% of the total of a non-recurring donor is what a recurring donor is donating annually. So significantly higher. So 120% above and beyond what a normal donor is donating, your recurring donors are donating. So there's a huge benefit financially to your missions, to the impact that you want to make in your community based on having recurring donors. Now let's talk a little bit about what helps people along the path to becoming a recurring donor, because one of the biggest things that we find is that folks who want to donate want to be connected, and they tend to be connected at a greater rate. They want to be connected to the activities of the church community. They want to be connected to the mission. They want to be connected to the people. And the greater that connection can be, the deeper that connection can be, the more touch points that connection can have, the easier it is for somebody to dive into this world of connected giving. Whether it's being a recurring donor, whether it's continuing to attend long after, an Easter visit, where in many cases, again, people are unchurched and walking in for the one time of the year, and it's our only opportunity to talk to them. So let's dive in really quickly. So over the last year, there's been an evolution for Vanco. And we've been thinking about giving, and we've been thinking about how this connected giving approach transforms church communities. And it really boils down to 4 buckets. So when we think about this deeper connection, is tied to telling your story. What does that mean? It means conveying a vivid story, something that people can grasp onto, something that is visual. In this visual, short format, video world, what do people want? They want this opportunity to connect and see this story come to life in front of them. So telling that story is the first piece. Secondly, let's talk about sharing the story. And sharing that story is, we live in a social world. This social world is, again, short form video. It's pictures, whether it's Instagram or Pinterest or whatever the sharing platform is. There's so many out there, but the point is, there's a visual component to sharing. There's a visual component with short form video that is so impactful. There's an opportunity to share sound bites of incredible moments, whether they're in your service or whether they're in events that you conduct as a church community across the board, to be able to convey and bring to life those things that you do. They could be as simple as a moment in the service where there are children being interacted with, or there's a poignant portion of a message being delivered. It could be something as simple as a service event, and the type of outreach that your community is doing. Those things mean so much in this world where people are looking for something to connect to. They're looking for community. From there, let's talk a little bit about fostering generosity. And this is tied in where creating that connection, telling the story, sharing the story, and then allowing for that opportunity to give. providing it in the ways and the means that people really need to see it, need to have that opportunity in front of them to be able to act on it. That's what we're talking about when we talk about fostering generosity. It's telling the details of the story and giving results for things that we've done. And last year's fundraiser raised X dollars for this particular cause. Last year's outreach reached X amount of people. These sorts of things are incredible, and that dovetails into gaining insight. And this is this end of this loop that we talk about, which is, what can we learn? And we'll talk a little bit about how the insights that we've baked into the platform really help you to do this. But gaining insight is so key. In today's world, people are looking for data. They're looking for facts and figures. They're looking for an opportunity to say, this moved the needle in my community. This moved the needle for me. And it's incredibly impactful, not only for those use cases, but also for the leaders in our communities to say, what can I learn? Who can I reach out to connect with deeper? Is there something I can learn about their behavior from these insights? Are there conversations I can have to proactively reach out to them, minister to them in a more fulfilling way, and move the needle in their life? So moving on, let's start with storytelling. So let's dive in, right? As we talk about telling a story, it's really all about building connections between your donors and your causes. What are the things that you're doing, and how do you tell that story? When we jump into the platform for an abbreviated look later, you'll see the sorts of things that are available. And in terms of this, it's all about visuals, right? So telling that story, making sure people can see what's happening. Man, this is an impactful visual. This description really drives it home. And it lets me understand that when I give to this fund that we have set up, it's moving the needle in this area. It is making a difference in this thing that I care greatly about, that I'm passionate about. And to that point, what we've seen from a directed giving standpoint, and when we talk about directed giving, we're talking about specific church funds. So almost 40% of churchgoers prefer to give to a specific church fund, right? As opposed to a general fund. Now, I know for those of us who serve in leadership roles across our faith communities, this can be a little scary. We can look at this and say, there's a risk to our general fund. But what we've seen over the course of time, as we've seen a decline in overall faith and religious-based generosity, we've seen this emphasis on specificity in what the mission is and what we're trying to achieve. So delivering a message that's specific to the key important things for your church, whether they are tied to an Easter specific drive, whether they're tied to a Lent specific drive, whether they're tied to something that's broader, that is a capital campaign, or whether it's tied to a mission fund, or whether it is tied to a general fund. Those things, that giving the option for the specificity really meets our donors at the place of need today for them, where they need to feel this connection. And in terms of that preference and thinking about generations of donors, we see a strong preference within directed giving for our 45 to 54-year-old demographic. Now, that demographic across the large swath of donors in the United States is the number one demographic. They are the highest in terms of donations on a per capita basis, depending on the time frame that you're looking at. But generally speaking, this is the core giving group. Earning peaks sometimes empty nesters, etc. And they have an incredibly high preference across directed giving. So thinking about that specificity, providing the opportunity in those specific ways is super impactful. Now, as we think about categories, we have the luxury at Vanco to understand specific donations and where these funds are allocated based on our giving tiles. So what you're seeing here is a picture, a snapshot over a full year of how many giving tiles are sitting in what categories. Now, this data has been slightly generalized. Some of the headings and the specifics on them were a little bit more focused than what you see hitting here. In many cases, and I can say this having been the person who looked at the data and categorized the data. In many instances, you have outreach that it gets super specific, things that are super meaningful to the community. It's Water Street rescue outreach, right? It's mission to the Dominican. In terms of capital and building campaigns, it's new windows for the sanctuary. It's refurbish, the kitchen. It's all of these things that are tied in. In terms of holidays, you can get as specific as decorations and other specific pieces, youth and children. So as you look at this list and think about these categories, think about how you're messaging. What are the things that I'm calling out? How do they speak to the people that I want to impact? And then how specific can I get in a way that makes this come alive, not just from a visual perspective, but also from a verbal perspective, and explaining how awesome this opportunity is to, again, impact our, whether it be local, worldwide community, whether it's tied to our general tithes and offerings that fund the budget that accomplishes the things and give us a place to worship together. All of those things, it's incredibly important to take a moment and think about, how can I communicate this in a super impactful way that really speaks to my community, to the donors I'm looking to communicate with and looking to impact, and give them a feeling that keeps them feeling, again, back to that word, connected with our mission. So let's jump in a little bit in terms of what does that story look like? Again, strong way to make the story pop. It's all about specific ask. Explaining the why is super important here. It's this emotional connection. The things that make us commit are typically emotional, and that's universal across the board. So make sure, as you're talking about your specific funds, your specific ways to support the community and the mission, that we focus on the why. Look at imagery as a primary way to communicate. We don't remember words as nearly as well as we remember images, and we are in an era where attention spans are nothing. So imagery is super important. And then think about all of the channels, all of your touch points of how do you speak about giving opportunities? How do you talk about what the church's mission is? Whether it's on your website, making sure that's up to date, making sure that it feels welcoming. As folks are determining, where do I visit on an Easter Sunday, they're thinking about websites. They look at websites and say, oh, yeah, I'll visit this place. This place looks welcoming. It looks friendly. It looks like they're clear about when they're meeting, whether it's a holiday or other times. Those things. Also in the Sunday service, what's on the sign? What's in the bulletin? What's being shown on screen if you have a screen? What's in the announcements if you have those? What's being posted on social media, whether it's Facebook or otherwise? what exists from an email outreach perspective. All those things super important. But the other thing that's really important that gets forgotten so many times is sharing the results. So after something's happened, it's time to celebrate and share out those results to make sure that people know you're making a difference. Your contributions matter, and it's enabling this mission. It's helping us to build this kingdom. So let's talk a little bit about social sharing then. So we tell your story, right? Let's talk a little bit about share your story. And this is all about increasing engagement through social channels. Now I know there's a new social channel every other day. The big one's still there, constantly evolving, but it is a moving target. And so it's no great secret that a lot of us are just playing catch up. So as we think about that, again, I mentioned this earlier, attention spans are the critical piece here. Over the course of the last number of years, our attention span has dropped from an average of almost 3 minutes to less than 30 seconds. That to me is alarming generally, but I will say this, it's important to understand because we live in a world now of instant gratification, where most of the folks who are visiting our faith communities, most of the folks who are devoted attendees have a very short attention span. And that's been caused and nurtured by social media. So when you think about how people are engaging, so many of more than half engaging on social media across nonprofits broadly. So beyond churches to all nonprofits, folks are engaging on social media. And almost 60% of those are donating. In terms of what we've heard from feedback, almost half of churches are saying that their social media is their most effective method of outreach. So for those folks who are not leveraging social media at its max, doing everything that they can within their constraints, it is an incredibly important place to lean into. And what are the two most important places? Well, from a Facebook standpoint, the reach there is incredible. The challenge is that there is an issue with advertising on it, right? So if someone wants to get visibility, they're paying for it. The key here is all about making sure that you are focused on the folks that have directly visited you. These are your basic followers. These are your community. It is an incredible place to gather beyond your church management system, beyond any other places that you're connecting, to have that presence, to continue to tell your story for anyone who wants to search you, reach out to you, and understand what you're all about. YouTube as well. So again, think about this in terms of short form, long form. Posting content is incredibly important. Think about this. Even though our attention spans are less than 30 seconds today, the average YouTube user of the 2.7 billion monthly active users spends 3/4 of an hour on the platform every single day. They're spending more time on the platform than almost anything else they're doing outside of work. It's an incredibly impactful, incredibly sticky place. And why? It's what we were talking about earlier. How do we think about visually impacting folks? Folks want video. They want those key connection moments. This is an incredible way to do it. So telling that story again and sharing that story then through the power of social media, so key. So one of the things that we've created is a free social media kit for everybody. It's got 250 social media posts, ideas, strategy, seasonal image, content, things that can be used to really move the needle in a very fast way. Low lift for your staff, very easy to implement. I highly recommend that you grab this. Again, Church Social Media Guide. All right, now let's move on. In terms of fostering generosity, so fostering generosity, incredibly important, right? Making this path to giving super easy. Well, what fosters generosity more than connection, right? It is the number one thing when you can have someone feel with you and feel with your church to be able to foster generosity. So think about your website, really dive into it and look at it as an extension of your church lobby. Think about how many of us have walked into our church lobby and we notice everything. But when we go on our church website, we don't notice anything. We're only looking for the buttons we're used to clicking on. If you're a leader, think about, what does this look like for a first-time visitor? Can I find what I'm looking for? Do I have my service time? Do I explain how childcare is handled? If I was to come here without knowing anyone, would I be able to feel comfortable arriving with my family, however many folks are in it, and know what to do? Is that something that I could do? Do I know how to get involved? Do I know how to tie in? Do I understand what you believe and what you support and all of those things? Do I understand what the events are that you're doing it? Maybe that's something that I really want to connect with. One of the places that you can look for some inspiration is in the Vanco Valley Community Church website that we've put up. It gives some best practices, a few ideas that are a great way to think about, how do I approach this? What would be a good format? It's not perfect for every instance. It's not always best in class for every iteration of how you are expressing yourself online. But for those of you who are a little bit newer to creating this online presence, it's an incredible resource to be able to give you real visual tools and guidance for how to approach this online presence. All right, so now for the fun stuff. When we think about giving pages, and you'll see here our giving platform and the imagery as an example, is super important, again, to tell that message that you want to tell, to drive the engagement that you want to drive visually, and to make it easy for everyone to access. So incredibly important to use compelling imagery, having something that's just a click or two away from the homepage, so people can easily access online giving opportunities. They can think about, what are the goals for each of the funds that are listed, for each of the giving opportunities. Sometimes if there's a prior year metric to something, that's even more exciting. And so they can say, all right, this is something that really was achieved. It accomplished something in the community, and I've got a number that I can attach to it. I know what sort of difference that can make. That can be tremendous. On top of that, think about ways that folks can get involved outside of donations. So even the ability to promote something that's beyond donations, that's, if you can't donate, volunteer in this way, those sorts of things, incredibly impactful for building the overall community. All right. So we've talked about telling the story, we've talked about sharing that story, and then we've talked about fostering the generosity, giving that opportunity to give. But one of the things that separates the time that we're living in now from everything that's come before it is the immense amount of data and the ability to look at this information and gain insights. I've always said insights are incredibly different than data. Insights tell you things that you can act on. Data is just simply information. And a powerful thing that we've launched with Vanco in our giving platform is an insights platform that focuses on 3 key areas. And that's the overall health of the mission in terms of the finances, the giving trends that are tied into that, and then the donor level insights that give you the granular view to act as a spiritual leader with these folks and go way beyond just understanding how people are donating and really think about them in terms of their human identity, their spiritual identity, and what responsibility we have to them as leaders. So I'm just going to give one example of each type of dashboard in our platform. You want to dive in and take a look at a ton of stuff. We've got tons of folks that can help you and take you through all of that. But I wanted to focus on a few key areas because for me, what I've seen as I speak to our clients across the country and we think about specifically key moments across the year, there's a huge benefit to understanding certain aspects of our giving. One of those is scheduled donations, right? So when we think about the overall health of our donations and of our church, we're thinking about that in terms of what does our cash flow look like? How do we plan out our outlay? So we want to accomplish this. We want to build that. We want to refurbish this. We want to invest in new hymnals. We want to invest in new Bibles. We want to invest in this way in this program. It's really important to understand what can I expect to come in. And this is what differentiates Vanco from a lot of folks, which is the ability to look across time and to say, we have these things scheduled. We were talking about recurring donations earlier. This is where it comes to life. What do my next 6 weeks of cash flow look like? How can I plan for these things? How do I make sure that I'm not concerned? I'm not overextending us. I'm giving us enough cushion to be really smart about how I plan things. This is incredibly impactful. Now, on top of that, when we think about the next layer, which is really what do those trends look like? Let's think about donor churn, right? One of the biggest concerns for a lot of us is how many folks that I'm looking at that have been consistent donors for me are moving elsewhere. They're attending elsewhere. They might be leaving church overall. How can I track these things? How can I understand them? How long does someone have to attend before they are really kind of out of that likely churn phase? A very important thing to understand across donations, again, to predict what the sort of donor health is that we're looking at, and how can we continue to fund the growth of the mission that we have. Last thing I'll hit on this is something that to me really speaks deeply, and that is giving changes. The two things that you see here on the left is giving decreases, and then onto the right, giving increases. And the giving decreases on the left, these would be folks who are dropping off in terms of giving. Now, obviously, we have the data masked and you see demo users showing, but the point is these folks would be declining significantly in a major way. They would have been previously large donors, etc., and they're disappearing. So what does that tell me? That could tell me a number of things. It could be job loss. It could be health issue. It could be so many different things that are happening. Could be move planned. It could be all of these things. These are incredible opportunities to cultivate conversations, to talk in a true discipleship fashion with folks, to understand what's going on in their life, to invest back in them, and to take it way beyond giving. Same thing on the giving increases. The folks who are all of a sudden giving significantly more, perhaps they have a blessing, a windfall, could be an inheritance, could be a promotion, could be causes to celebrate along with them. And an opportunity to have a conversation about how they responsibly build their life going forward and how we shepherd them. It's, to me, these insights are just incredibly important from that perspective. So, all that being said, let's talk a little bit about the Vanco giving platform. And I will jump over, we'll hit onto this really quickly. And then from there, see if I can get the actual screen share to work and show everybody what we're looking at. So one moment here. All right. Let's see if we can jump over into just a real quick look of what a giving page that is well designed looks like and what does it really hit on. So do a quick share over here on screen too, and hopefully Jenny, you're seeing that. If not, let me know. Awesome. So this is a picture of Vanco Valley Community Church. You'll see a staging site here. Again, it's a demo site, but this is what's so powerful about the platform. We won't have an opportunity to get into some of the insights pieces or some of the video content pieces, the outreach and communications modules that we offer here. But you can get a brief look at what Vanco is and how we approach things in terms of our overall giving platform. And here's the key thing. When we look at a Vanco Valley Community Church, this is a single click from the homepage. You want to make sure that this donation page is always a single click from the homepage. It's never further than that, always easy to access. And you'll see a few things here. Called out some of these earlier. One of those is imagery, right? These things, the specific imagery that's used, whether it's something that's tied directly into Sunday or directly into a capital campaign. You see, the imagery fits the messaging. It is conveying the message from multiple levels. On top of that, we're calling out what we actually do, right? Whether it's a Sunday offering, what does this go to? It's an easy way for members and visitors to support the mission. Focuses on general fund, calls that out directly. The capital campaign, what's going on there? Oh, it's a 2025 capital campaign. This is focused on how we're going to support, new visitors, young families, etc. Right? Whether it's Feed the Hungry, whether it's a playground fund, whether it's Sunday school supplies, whether it's a family festival. All these different things, we can add one very quickly in terms of a brand new tile right here. But very simply, they're calling out what's happening. Super easy for somebody to jump in, whether give recurring, give in installments one time, select frequency, add in their member number and add something to a basket and give in absolutely no time. And then again, as we talked about before, very easy to tie back into how do we reach back out to them? How do we keep this connected? And we've got solutions there. So let me stop sharing for 1 second and I will get right back onto sharing our other screen. Let's see. Awesome. Appreciate the patience there. So let's talk a little bit about that donor experience, right? So what are we talking about here? It's really four aspects. One, we're talking about the giving module. Very straightforward. You saw it in action there. Super easy to set up a tile, super easy to populate in terms of visuals. We provide a lot of that in the background. Easy to put copy in, very easy for folks to donate and to stand up in minutes. So that giving module is always secure with PCI level 1 certification that Vanco is known for, and a long history of serving faith communities across the country. On top of that, over the last year, we added in a donor communication module. So the ability to communicate deeply with members through email, making sure that we can send out appreciation, we can tie into things that they've done directly through the platform. So no need to exit the platform to be able to deliver that. And then in terms of learnings, so we showed a few teasers earlier on the insight side and reporting side. So much stuff that we didn't show that really gives you a robust picture of a year-over-year long-term view, understanding of donor trends in a way that helps you to make decisions and helps you to understand what's happening to drive the right conversations. On top of that, we've always got partnership resources. We've got amazing folks like Jenny and her team that are dedicated to supporting our valued partners and making sure their experience is top notch every single day that they're interacting with Vanco. Moreover, few links here that will be sent out afterwards. We have a giving study that we do periodically. This gives you a super broad understanding of what overall generosity looks like. It studies tons and tons of different data points, but on top of that, we do our own survey data as proprietary. Nobody else has, and it really moves the needle. Not only from getting folks to understand what's happening, but also giving super unique insights that are really crucial to the folks who depend on us. And they help us to make decisions as far as what do we need to offer and how do we need to tailor our offerings to make them more relevant every single month, every single quarter, every single year for our clients. On top of that, we do a giving index. And so this gives few of those benchmarked factoids that I shared earlier, a lot more stuff in there that gives you a really robust picture of what the data is that we have available to us to help you understand the giving landscape more granularly, more focused against the actual church space behavior that we observe in true mathematical fashion every month, all the time. But here's what's super important, right? We've got a few different pieces here, and one of those things is letters, right? So how do we ask for money? How do we ask for folks to enhance their generosity? Sometimes we need a little bit of inspiration. That's what these giving letters are here for. And so whether it's the Easter season or following after that, incredibly valuable stuff here. And then donor appreciation. So many times we have the opportunity, we have folks reach out, we have folks attend, we have them donate, and then honestly, as church leaders, we drop the ball sometimes, and we say we forget to thank them, we forget to or have no good way to thank them, have no process for doing that. It's an incredibly important piece of just expressing how grateful we are that folks are participating in our joint vision of building the kingdom. And so we have some resources there as well. So with that, wanted to go ahead and open it up for questions. As we move on, I know I'll have to stop sharing and open it up there. So not sure how we handle this piece. Looks like we have a few questions in chat. take a look. Okay, not seeing them there. Any questions? Again, I'll go on mute for a moment and look for those questions to come through in chat. Happy to answer those. All right, I'm not seeing anything come through. So if there are questions here, one sec. Sorry, something just put through. If there are no questions, then we'll just go ahead and tie up. Again, feel free to reach out directly to me if you have any questions, or to Jenny, and anything else. It can come through EPN and directed to us. Looking forward to connecting with a bunch of you who attended. Appreciate everyone's time. Thanks so much, and looking forward to serving you better as we move forward. Thanks.